All right, thank you for coming to the Bright Light series, Natasha. This is the last episode, I guess we'll call it, of the series. And the Bright Light series is really designed to bring people together during this global pandemic to talk about how they can show up for their business, for their life. And we've been doing Instagram lives where people talk, guests are chatting more about sort of what the tips and tricks around running a business in this time. And the Zoom calls that we're doing that we're recording here now are more around how we can show up for ourselves and take care of ourselves during times of stress or uncertainty so that we can continue to show up in our business. So certainly applicable now during this pandemic, but also just in our everyday lives because there's always things coming at us. So I'm so happy that you agreed to show up today and to chat with us about everything that we're going to talk about tonight. And so if you could just start maybe with an introduction about who you are, and a little bit about what you've been doing.
Thank you so much for having me. My name's Natasha. I'm a massage therapist in Mahone Bay. I've been a massage therapist, it'll be 16 years in June. My focus in my practice is sort of evolving from women's health to a practice that is more inclusive and a safer space. And so that focus now is on biological female anatomy and biological female hormones. So my niche in my practice is kind of around like pelvic health, diaphragm health, and holistic health. So looking at the person as a whole, as opposed to perhaps just looking at a symptom. So doing intake assessment and really just helping them put the puzzle pieces together.
Yeah, I bet when folks come to you, they're coming with maybe one issue or tender spot, but you kind of open everything up and can really get a good picture, I'm assuming.
Yes, and often we're not necessarily treating what they came in for.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. And you've done some training as well in different areas. You mentioned osteopathy.
Yes, so I actually did my first year of osteopathy. I was finishing my first year when I became pregnant with my son, and I was put on bed rest at 17 weeks. So for the duration of my pregnancy almost. So I was unable to go back to second year. And then once Oscar came, it's been a whirlwind ever since. And I haven't gone back. While I was on maternity leave with Oscar, I also did some training in holistic nutrition as well. So I did some introductory courses there. So I have a passion with gut health and the gut-brain connection.
And learning. It sounds, I'm assuming every time we chat,
ongoing,
talking about a research article or something.
Oh
so
yeah,
you're always
learning as much as possible.
Yeah, you're a wealth of knowledge and resources. So yeah, so I'm excited for you to sort of share some of that and thinking that maybe so folks are just all on the same page with what we're going to be talking about with diaphragmatic breathing. If you could just give us all a bit of an introduction of the anatomy so we're on the same page.
Definitely. I'm just going to share my page so there can be a visualization as well. Okay. Can you see that really clearly? So there's a couple muscles that are involved. So, I mean, there's a lot going on when you take a deep breath in and when you take a breath out. So we're just going to really be talking about the muscles that are involved with that process. And your main muscle, your primary muscle, of respiration is your diaphragm. So you can see the diaphragm here, and it's this beautiful, what I think is beautiful, rainbow-shaped muscle, or dome-shaped or parachute-shaped. And you have some other muscles that are also involved. You have some muscles in between your ribs, a couple in the front of your neck, in the side of your neck. And what happens when you take a deep breath in, you have your diaphragm that sits up here like a rainbow. And when you inhale, that diaphragm flattens. So what's happening is the muscles in between the ribs are contracting, and they're pulling the ribs out and up like a bucket handle. And then the muscles in your neck are actually lifting your chest a bit. So it's this beautiful motion that comes down and out. And it's very fluid. Now, I'm also going to just mention the pelvic floor briefly. The pelvic floor is also a dome-shaped group of muscles in your pelvis. So when you take a deep breath in, because the diaphragm is compressing the organs a bit, when you inhale, when it flattens, the pelvic floor actually relaxes to allow for those organs. And then what happens is that the diaphragm and the pelvic floor move in this beautiful rhythm, and it actually massages your organs. So it's quite an amazing thing, and it has this effect throughout the entire body. Lots of benefits to that powerful movement, and that's why it's so important to be breathing properly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really engaging that diaphragm. So that's what we're gonna talk about today.
That's great. That's a great visual. So we're all on the same page. It really, when you were describing it, I felt myself like really consciously breathing and feeling. It's helpful to see it and breathe at the same time. So that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you have another video, or is the video for a little bit later?
We can do that one when we go through, maybe the exercise. And
sure.
Then,
do you want to stop sharing your screen?
I sure can.
Okay, great. So we can see you.
There
Wonderful. So you and I were chatting last week, and you were talking about the different types of breaths. And I know I'd never heard of it, heard the term diaphragmatic breathing before, but I knew a little bit about it. So can you sort of break that down for us so we know what it is? We may know, but we may have not heard the word before.
Yeah, so diaphragmatic breathing can also be referred to as belly breathing.
Oh.
And it just basically means that you're engaging that diaphragm fully, 100%. That is your primary muscle of respiration, and it's a strong muscle. So compared to apical breathing, or some people may call it apical breathing. I had this conversation with someone last night. It makes sense to call it apical because when you're breathing in your chest, you're actually just using the apex of your lungs. So we can call it apical breathing. So if you are a chest breather, you're mainly using your accessory muscles. So those are just small muscles in the neck and shoulder region. So it's more up here. You're not really engaging the diaphragm a whole lot. And it's really not necessarily an efficient way to breathe. You're not necessarily getting a really deep breath. So that's kind of the difference between, I guess, diaphragmatic breathing and apical breathing, is that apical, you're just using the smaller muscles and can create a lot of tension in this area. And diaphragmatic breathing, it's almost a full body experience.
Right. So would you say with the apical breathing, your internal organs are maybe not getting that massage that they would?
Precisely. So you could be experiencing like your digestive system could perhaps be a bit slower. Maybe you're experiencing some constipation. Yeah, you're not getting that beautiful rhythm in through the abdominal area. So not a lot of pumping and movement and blood flow.
And is that happening, like, do you see correlations with people who are feeling like stressed or anxious with not, I'm assuming, taking those deeper breaths?
Absolutely. So, even when I have a client come in and they're experiencing neck tension, I often dive really deep into their intake and find out what's going on with their body. Are your, like, going back to the bowels, are your bowels moving? Um, what are you experiencing throughout your entire body? And I will automatically look at their breathing patterns. And it's quite visible when someone is not engaging through that diaphragm. I don't often need to even put my hands on them to figure that out. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Sometimes I go off.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. Definitely does. So I guess that kind of leads me into, if we're not really conscious of how we're breathing, if we maybe are just going about our day to day, not even thinking about it because it happens automatically, and you have 23 hats you're wearing and pulled in all different directions. That's one thing you don't have to think about, but it sounds like you should think about it a bit.
Awareness of your breath is so important. Conscious breathing is so important. And often, even for myself, I was an apical breather, experienced a lot of anxious feelings of anxiousness. And if I am not holding awareness to my breath, it's almost like I revert to that way of breathing. There's a switch. And I often bring awareness to my breath in the morning, and I have reverted back to that breathing pattern. So bringing awareness first thing, as soon as you open your eyes, bringing awareness to that breath, and then trying to carry that with you throughout the day it takes a lot. I've been working on this for about 10 years in my own practice. It can take a lot to really be fully aware, but even if you're doing it a couple times a day,
right?
You nailed it. That's so important.
And it's not just in yoga, like when you're doing a yoga class. I think that we often are thinking about our breath because our instructor is telling us to think, but it can be something you can practice all the time. I know since we've chatted, it's like how I end my evening. I put some Nourish spray on my belly, and I do the, yes, exactly. I don't do a lot of routines, but that in this last month has been, it's been really helpful.
Yeah,
really helpful. But I hadn't thought to start my day off that way. I'm ending my day, but I think I think I could add that easily.
When we had originally chatted, you had given me a different perspective. You had said this type of exercise, this tool is so accessible. So, it's there for you. I mean, whether it's in the morning or at night or throughout the day, as a tool when you're feeling feelings of anxiousness, or even as a preventative, it's there for you. It's whenever you need it.
Yeah, it's true. Nobody has to know you're doing it. You can do it while kids are bickering in the corner or poking each other. You can do it. You can do it anytime. We talked one earlier about a self-assessment. So, understanding what type of breather we are.
Absolutely.
How do you do that?
Yeah, so you can do that sitting two ways. You can sit up nice and tall with your feet on the floor, or you can lay down. I usually recommend a pillow under your knees or under your head just to be comfortable, and so that there's really no strain on the abdominal area. You can place one hand on your belly and one hand on your chest. See it here. And really just want to listen. You want to bring, without forcing anything, you just want to bring awareness to your breath and just listen to your breathing patterns. And, pay attention to, are you breathing more in this hand, in the hand that's on your chest? Or do you find that you are breathing into the area in your stomach? And I usually recommend doing that for 3 breaths. And once you've done that listening, then I usually recommend moving the hands to the lateral ribs, so to the side of your ribs, and do some listening there for 3 breaths. And not even trying to breathe into those areas, just breathing normally, and just paying attention and bringing some awareness. So after you do the self-assessment, if you notice that you are breathing more into the chest, that's usually an indication that you're an apical breather. And of course, then if you're breathing more into your belly or into your lateral ribs, which is where I normally focus mine in on, that can usually be an indication that you're more of a diaphragmatic breather.
And, ideally we're all wanting and striving to be diaphragmatic breathers. And you mentioned that you've been working on this for 10 years.
Long time.
So I guess suffice to say that if folks are playing around with this, not to necessarily expect that it's a quick change.
Absolutely. We do, I wouldn't say it's, something that's going to take 10 years.
Yeah.
I think that this type of breathing is more of a lifestyle. So it's something that you want to do ongoing. And what's fortunate about the breath, it's something that's automatic in our body, but we can retrain it. And I think it's really just starts with bringing awareness, like you said.
I feel like it's a tool that, we talk a lot about when we're in these times of uncertainty, or, when we're running our businesses in general. There's always times of uncertainty. You think from, pressing publish on, an updated website, or going to pitch to an investor. Like, those are some, a couple of examples of things that may have us feeling a little anxious. And if you can remember to tap into this tool, like I can imagine if you're sitting in a waiting room ready to pitch to somebody, if you can just sit there and practice your breathing, like that's going to, and we had Sally Hutchinson on talking about somatic experiencing and your autonomic nervous system. Like, I feel like that will just immediately like lower the tension.
100%. Yeah, it really has a full body. It can have a full body effect. So from my experience with diaphragmatic breathing, sometimes it does take exercising that to be able to use it as a tool in those situations. But Absolutely. Take it with you regardless.
Yeah.
And pull it out, dust it off, and use it whenever you can.
I feel like having like a sticky note on your laptop, like breathe. I have one that says pause on mine right now, but I feel like, yeah.
And that's a good point. You know, I was reading this one article about how, you know, even when we're perusing, for example, oftentimes we're holding our breath. So that's also, I mean, regardless of the different type of breathing patterns, if you're holding your breath, imagine what that's doing. Like those muscles that are contracting during inhalation, well, they're not relaxing if you're holding your breath. So someone that is on the computer more often, especially, having a sticky note as a reminder to breathe, that's a great idea.
Just breathe. Don't.
Yeah, don't even think about diaphragmatic breathing at this point. Just inhale or exhale for that matter.
Yeah. Oh, well, we know, like when we're in tense situations, right? Like everything, you know, I'm sure we can go into a whole body kind of what's happening, but you know,
100%.
it's not just breath, but it's certainly it can be an easy one to hold really tightly. Yeah. I know that we've got a couple of other things to chat about, but do you want to do the benefits, or did you want to show us I love the video that you showed me earlier.
Oh, yes. So we can talk about the benefits. We could also go into the exercise. That's up to you.
Yeah, let's what would make sense to go first? Does it make sense to do the exercise and then talk about how great that
was? Why don't we do that? I'm just going to share my page. Okay. So the reason why I'm showing a flower opening and closing is because I often like to think of the inhalation, like a flower opening. So almost imagining a flower in your stomach, opening up slowly as you inhale, and then it almost pauses at when you reach that resistance, and then slowly closing. So I'll just show it here so you can visualize that happening. So inhalation, pause, and exhalation, but it's very fluid. It's a very smooth motion.
So it's not steps. It's not like breathe in.
Yeah, so I'm just going to stop sharing here. Some diaphragmatic breathing. So the way we actually learned in college, we were taught to get the client to inhale and then inhale again and then inhale again and then exhale. That personally to me feels a little forced. So I don't actually teach it in that way. I usually just, get them to visualize something slowly opening and closing, and listening to your body. When you're inhaling, if you can only get to a breath of 2 or 3, then that's when you exhale. And if holding it doesn't feel right in your body, then not to hold it. Just focus on that inhalation and exhalation. So I'm just going to actually read through what I put here for the benefits, just so I don't.
Sure. Does it make sense to try to hold, like to inhale, like say for 3 breaths and hold for 3 breaths and exhale for 3? Like, is there something with the consistent time?
Absolutely. So usually that's exactly what I recommend. So the amount of time you're able to inhale, so for me, depends on the day, to be honest with you, and what's going on. Can be anywhere from like 5 to a count of 10. So then I slowly count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
And in through the mouth, out through the nose. Is that ideal?
So, sorry to cut you off.
No, it's okay.
Normally, you breathe in through the nose, so warming and filtering the air before it enters your lungs. And then exhale, the exhales through the mouth.
Okay.
And when we go into the exercise, we can get into that a little bit more.
I think it's so great that you said some days it's 5, some days it's 10, and depending on the time of day. Like, I think that's so important because we hear about these exercises and these practices, and we're striving to be the most flexible, but some days you just can't touch your toes, and that's okay. There's not a specific goal for each time. It's just working with your body, it sounds like.
Absolutely. Always not forcing it, always listening to your body. And I say 5 to 10, but yours might be 2 to 5.
Yeah.
So always.
And to give yourself,
listening.
Give your body, it doesn't matter the day, it doesn't matter how, you're not trying to get to 10 every day. It's not like a goal, it's just trying to do that practice so that you can have that beautiful massage in your body.
Yeah. And with my diaphragmatic breathing, my goal every day is really just to bring awareness and be breathing consciously and not going into that autopilot. So even just starting there, even if you're not getting the breathing down, but just bringing that awareness in, and then focusing on your breathing exercises. Long term, I would say I normally would recommend trying to build up, trying to increase that capacity, engaging through that muscle more. But again, always come back to listening.
Yeah.
And just honoring yourself. Yeah.
Good reminder.
Mm-hmm. So some of the benefits that diaphragmatic breathing can offer, and these are not claims by any means. So it can possibly lower your heart rate, promote relaxation by lowering cortisol levels, turning off that sympathetic mode, can help break the cycle, which I experienced this one at a natural birth, and just really using diaphragmatic breathing during that was quite powerful.
So you buffered for a second there. You mentioned in birth. Was it pain or?
Oh, so I said, breaking the pain cycle is one of the benefits of diaphragmatic breathing. And I actually used that as a tool during my natural birth I had with Oscar. And it was quite profound to use that visualization and use that as a tool to help with that pain.
Yeah.
So promoting lymphatic flow, reducing muscle tension, improving digestive and bowel function, like we had mentioned earlier, improving circulation, and can help with just overall health, and it can also help with sustained attention. So we had talked about, you know, some benefits for entrepreneurs, and that is definitely, yeah, one of them.
Yeah, and this whole series is really about, we need, you know, echoing this Kate Northrup, who talks about I'm sure you know, yeah. She always talks about body first, business second. And when I heard that, it just resonated so strongly with me. And that was a real inspiration for this series, is that we can't show up for anybody, let alone our business. You can't show up for our family or our friends or community unless we're taking care of ourselves. So yeah, I think this is a really important topic and a really important tool that we've said over and over. You have it with you. You don't have to have a membership for it. You don't have to have supplies for it. Like you can do it. It's like Kegels. You can do that
anywhere, or relax Kegels, reverse Kegels.
Okay, yeah.
Opening the flower.
Right. Oh gosh, there's another topic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is definitely something that I hope folks can take something from it. I'm not sure if there's a specific exercise that people can try, or you want to take
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe I'll just walk you through the 3 steps of inhalation that you can do at home, and then the exhalation. So with step 1, the inhalation, you can place your hand on your abdomen. Actually, you could even place both hands on your abdomen, and without forcing it, inhale for a count of 5. And again, keeping in mind that if you only get to 2, that's okay. So you really want to focus on lifting your hands with your breath. So this is helping you retrain your breath. So lifting your hands with your breath as you're inhaling, visualizing that flower, that visual that we showed earlier, opening in your stomach and into your pelvis. And you can also even imagine the flower opening out of your pelvis. Or if that doesn't resonate with you, then perhaps a balloon in your stomach and imagining the balloon inflating. So really thinking about it from like a 360-degree perspective. So everything is sort of expanding deep towards the pelvis. And I think something to mention here is just noting that when you are practicing this part, retraining this part of your breath, that there's very minimal movement in your chest. How's my Wi-Fi connection? I feel like I was glitchy there.
It was a little glitchy. We could still hear you, but a little bit frozen right now. Did we lose you?
Oh no!
Oh, you're there.
I don't know what happened.
You're still here.
Okay. Everything shut down on my end.
Yeah, it looked like you left for a minute, but you're still there.
Okay. I don't know how much you heard.
Yeah,
so I just finished off by saying very minimal movement in the chest.
Yeah.
So step 2 is placing your hands on your ribs. So we did that in the assessment. So, and without forcing it, inhaling again for a count of 2, 5, 7, whatever feels comfortable and safe to you. And this time you're moving your hands out with your breath. So breathing into your ribs, moving your hands out, and you can even apply a bit of resistance here just to bring a bit of awareness to this aspect of the breathing, like to try to correct this aspect of the breathing. And you can do those, like each step for a couple breaths if you like. And then just moving into step 3, you just then want to place your fingertips on your manubrium. Now, I could not find a layman's term for this. So basically, it's the top of your chest bone. So if you just walk your fingers up, just the top part of your bone, So when you're taking a deep breath in, that's where you want to focus the breath this time. So remember all of those muscles of respiration. So we're basically trying to turn them on and tell them, you know, this is where this is where we want to breathe.
Yeah, you're giving them a path almost.
Yeah. So, and again, without forcing it, just breathing in for a count of 5 and just trying to lift those fingertips a bit in that area. And then lastly, the exhalation. So for proper exhalation, you really want to just visualize the diaphragm relaxing first. So around your belly, diaphragm relaxing first, and then the muscles in between your ribs, and then the muscles in your neck. And I always just mention to clients that just be aware of where your shoulders are in space, especially during the exhalation, and just really drop those shoulders and relax in through that shoulder girdle. And I think it's, you know, important to mention that diaphragmatic breathing is a slow, full, not forced. I've said don't force it a million times, but again, a technique that's not forced. I know there's lots of different types of breath work, but diaphragmatic breathing is, I always think of it. Have you ever played with cornstarch and water? I think it's called like oobleck or something.
Yeah,
oh, so much fun. But you know, when you actually like hit it with a spoon and you're forcing it, it is so resistant. Like it's rock solid. You cannot get through that. But if you just gently, you know, ease into it, it is so smooth and just so fluid. And that's how I think of, you know, muscles. We don't want to force it. You want it to be a smooth, fluid engagement.
That's a great visual. That's
good.
A big visual.
Good.
Having small children, have played with that a lot. Definitely. That's really, that makes sense.
Yeah, so think of diaphragmatic breathing like oobleck.
Right.
So remember when you had asked me if you know, diaphragmatic breathing could potentially cause any soreness, like if you would have exercised. If you're thinking of it like oobleck or whatever that's called, you shouldn't have any soreness with diaphragmatic breathing, really.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a great visual. So overall, the takeaways, I guess, of what I'm hearing is if you can build a practice around it, like try to do it as often as you can, or I guess at the very least, when you feel like you need some calming or some relaxation, that you can sort of draw on this. And to not force it and to not sort of compare today to yesterday, I guess is a big takeaway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think you said it there. It's a practice, and it's something that it's something you want to do long term. It's a marathon. It's not necessarily a sprint.
Right.
So just bring it in to your practice, your day, you know, as often as possible.
That's a good way to think about it as well. I think about marathon runners, and they're quite, you know, controlled, and they're not rushing. They're that's great. Some great metaphors and visuals tonight. So I guess to kind of wrap it up, or did you have any last?
I was just going to mention one thing before we just end the conversation here about apical breathers. Just a couple of things that you can do at home to help with any attention, especially if we're all sitting at the computer right now trying to pivot. I woke up the other morning for the first time in a very long time with a kink in my neck trying to do this ebook. And I realized I was probably breathing in my chest the whole time. There are two tools that I use other than diaphragmatic breathing. And one is this Pilates ball. You could also use a golf ball or perhaps a tennis ball, and just putting it on the wall, leaning into it, and letting it sink into those accessory muscles, like all of these neck and shoulder muscles that are perhaps working more if we're breathing into our chest. And well, ergonomics. Look at my ergonomics, just trying to sit here. And Amanda did not prompt me to bring this on. Okay, this top Transdermal Magnesium, honestly, even like waking up with a kink, limited range of motion, I spray this on, every so often. I don't know. I do it every half an hour. I don't know what she would recommend. But by noon of using these two tools and really visualizing the breath into that area that I'm feeling tense, like forget diaphragmatic breathing, like really breathing into that area, I had full range of motion. And I'm not making any claims. This was just an experience. It's just such an effective, all of those three things are really effective tools, to use right now, even if you're not sitting at a desk and you're just experiencing tension. Pull out the dog balls or the Pilates balls or whatever you have.
Yeah, the dryer ball.
Transdermal magnesium and take a breath.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I think probably a lot of people are feeling that. I know for me, I'll get, neck crinks or clinks when, during really stressful times, or if I'm not sleeping well. Like those are all, factors for me. You wake up with that, oh gosh, why is this happening now? Or why today? And if you really dig into it, you kind of figure it out pretty quickly why. But that's a great tip for folks, especially if, we're on our phones a lot. Or,
100%.
Lots of reason we could have kinks in our necks right now, I think. So I don't know if you want to mention anything about your upcoming ebook, or at the very least how people can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So my only social platform is Instagram, and I'm Natasha Wellsford. Some people may know me as the Women's RMT, which I changed recently. And I am hopefully going to be coming out with a free ebook called Inhale and Exhale, Achieving Relaxation One Breath at a Time, and just a resource for anyone who needs it. Basically, the chapters are a lot of the talking points that we covered here. So it's just everything that's there. You need to go through the assessment or any of the exercises. It'll be there. So I was hoping to have it done tonight. I'm not sure when I'll have it done, but I'm sure there'll be a link in my link tree for it.
Great, and I'll definitely be sharing.
Keep an eye out.
That's wonderful. Again, I want to say thank you so much for taking time this evening to chat and to take us through those exercises and to sort of talk us through what those benefits of taking time and being conscious of our breath. I think it's so important, now especially, but throughout our lives, really, whether we're running businesses or whether we're just kind of getting through day to day.
Well, thank you for having me. And we went way over the half an hour, so thank you.
No, it's great.
I had a feeling we would not be able to stick with that half an hour time frame within those parameters.
No, it's great. Lots of great information to share with folks. So I'm glad we could do this.
Oh, well, thank you so much for thinking of me.
Okay, we'll chat with you soon.
Okay, see you later, Tara.